For photosynthesis, we have the chloroplast. Inside the chloroplast, we have the stroma, which is the liquid floating around, and then the granum, which is the stack of thylakoids. And then inside of the thylakoid, we have the chlorophyll. These are what make photosynthesis happen. So first, we have the sunlight. The sun shines on the chloroplast. They go into the thylakoid. And what happens is when the photon comes in, it is taken by a carrier, which brings it into the chlorophyll. Then the chlorophyll has a water inside of it, or an H2O, and it does something incredible that can only happen in photosynthesis. Scientists have not yet been able to recreate this. It takes the photon, and it uses the unstable photon to split the water into two positive hydrogen ions and one oxygen. So the O2 is waste and gets released outside the thylakoid. So it really only produces one O, oxygen, but the oxygen is combined to create an O2. So that is what humans breathe, and that is the only reason that humans can breathe. And so we have our hydrogen ions floating around. And there's a higher concentration of the hydrogen ions inside the thylakoid than outside the thylakoid. So naturally, because of diffusion, the hydrogen ions in here want to get outside of the stroma, or outside of the thylakoid and into the stroma, because there's less in the stroma than there's in the thylakoid. So the thylakoid has this little gear turning thing inside of it. So basically, if hydrogens want to get out of the thylakoid, they're going to have to go through the gear thing. It's the only exit. So they go inside the gear, and as they leave, they turn the gear, and turning this gear generates energy. And this energy is used to attach a phosphorus, which is sitting here, to an ADP. So the phosphorus that is sitting here and the ADP that is sitting here get smushed together by the energy that the hydrogen creates to create an ATP. It is a very important molecule for energy. Then outside the thylakoid, we also have some NADP+. So the NADP plus is another molecule floating around, and basically what happens is there is a negative charge on the tip of the thylakoid. So the hydrogen and the NADP come together here, and then they get smushed together because the NADP plus has a negative charge and the hydrogen has a positive charge, so they get smushed together, which creates NADPH. Now, so this is called photosystem 2, where the water is split, and this is called photosystem 1, where they go through the gear. Now moving on to the Calvin cycle, we start with ribulose biphosphate, which is a 5-carbon chain with a phosphorus. So first we have our ribulose biphosphate, then riboso, a molecule that takes carbon out of the air, will take a carbon from a CO2 and attach it to the 5-carbon chain. So now it is a 6-carbon chain. And this 6-carbon chain is a very unstable molecule. So what happens is it will actually split in half. And then we have 2 chains, and these are called PGAs. So this happens twice. So we have a total of 4 PGA chains. Next, we come over to the ATP. The ATP splits, releasing the phosphate on the end because it has a 3-phosphate group on the end. So it releases one of the phosphate groups, and this releases energy, which creates phosphorus and ADP. And this energy is used to then apply a hydrogen from the NADPH into the PGA chains, which creates a GP3. So the GP3s now have a hydrogen along with 3-carbon chain. And then the NADPH is turned back into NADP+. So then these GP3s will get combined. So this process happens a total of 3 times. So we have 12 GP3s, and then 2 of these, only 2, are used to make a single molecule of glucose, or H12C6. So this is a molecule of glucose. Then the rest of them go through a recycling process to get turned back into ribulose biphosphate. So first, there's a total of 10 chains left after 2 of them get turned into glucose. So we have chain number 1, that's 3. Then another chain attaches to that one. So then we have a total of 6. And basically, another one gets attached. So that's 3 used total, and that is a total of a 9 chain. So this gets split in half into a 5 chain, which is already a ribulose biphosphate. So now we have 1. And then we have another 4 chain. So 2 more get attached to the 4 chain, which creates a 10 chain. And then this 10 chain gets split in half to create 2 more ribulose biphosphates. So now there are 3, and this process happens twice. And now we're back where we started with 6 ribulose biphosphates. So that's a repeating process, and this is called the Calvin cycle. And this happens inside the stroma because it is a light-independent process, meaning it doesn't need sunlight. So it happens in the stroma, which doesn't get as much sunlight as the thylakoids. So what happens is this ADP in phosphorus is brought back into the gear area so that it can be combined again to create more energy. And the NADP plus goes back into the stroma where it can combine with hydrogen ions to create NADPH. So that is photosynthesis. And then the waste products of it are glucose and oxygen.